Chapter 60. Christianity has cheated us out of the harvest of ancient culture. Later, it cheated us again out of the harvest of the culture of Islam. The wonderful world of the Moorish culture of Spain, really more closely related to us, more congenial to our senses and tastes than Rome and Greece, was trampled down. I do not say by what kind of feet. Why? Because it owed its origin to noble, to male instincts, because it said yes to life, even with the rare and refined luxuries of Moorish life. Later, the Crusaders fought something before which they might more properly have prostrated themselves in the dust, a culture compared to which even our 19th century might well feel very poor very late. To be sure, they wanted loot. The Orient was rich. One should not be so prejudiced. Crusades, higher piracy, nothing else. The German nobility, the Viking nobility at bottom, was in its proper element here. The church knew only too well what it takes to get the German nobility. The German nobility, always the Swiss guards of the church, always in the service of all the bad instincts of the church, but well paid. That the church should have used German swords, German blood and courage to wage its war unto death against everything noble on earth. There are many painful questions at this point. The German nobility is almost missing in the history of higher culture. One guesses the reason: Christianity, alcohol, the two great means of corruption. Really, there should not be any choice between Islam and Christianity any more than between an Arab and a Jew. The decision is given. Nobody's free to make any further choice. Either one is a Chandala or one is not. War to the knife against Rome, peace and friendship with Islam. Thus felt, thus acted that great free spirit, the genius among German emperors, Frederick II. How? Must a German first be a genius, a free spirit, to have decent feelings? I do not understand how a German could ever have Christian feelings. Chapter 61. Here it becomes necessary to touch on a memory which is even 100 times more painful for Germans. The Germans have cheated Europe out of the last great cultural harvest which Europe could still have brought home, that of the Renaissance. Does one understand at last? Does one want to understand what the Renaissance was? The revaluation of Christian values, the attempt undertaken with every means, with every instinct, with all genius, to bring the counter values, the noble values, to victory. So far, there has been only this one great war. So far, there has been no more decisive question than that of the Renaissance. My question is its question, nor has there ever been a more fundamental, a straighter form of attack in which the whole front was led more strictly against the center, attacking in the decisive place, in the very seat of Christianity, placing the noble values on the throne. Here, I mean bringing them right into the instincts, into the lowest needs and desires of those who sat there. I envisage a possibility of a perfectly super-terrestrial magic and fascination of color. It seems to me that it glistens in all the tremors of subtle beauty, that an art is at work in it, so divine, so devilishly divine, that one searches millennia in vain for a second such possibility. I envisage a spectacle so ingenious, so wonderfully paradoxical at the same time, that all the deities on Olympus would have had occasion for immortal laughter. Caesar Borgia as Pope. Am I understood? Well then, that would have been the victory which alone I crave today. With that, Christianity would have been abolished. What happened? A German monk, Luther, came to Rome. This monk, with all the vengeful instincts of a shipwrecked priest in his system, was outraged in Rome against the Renaissance. Instead of understanding with the most profound gratitude the tremendous event that had happened here, the overcoming of Christianity in its very seat, his hatred understood only how to derive its own nourishment from this spectacle. A religious person thinks only of himself. Luther saw the corruption of the papacy when precisely the opposite was more than obvious. The old corruption, the peccatum originale, Christianity no longer sat on the papal throne, but life, but the triumph of life, but the great yes to all high, beautiful, audacious things. And Luther restored the church. He attacked it. The Renaissance, an event without meaning, a great in vain. Oh, these Germans, what they have cost us already, in vain. That has always been the doing of the Germans, the Reformation, Leibniz, Kant, and so-called German philosophy, the wars of liberation, the Reich. Each time and in vain for something that had already been attained, for something irrevocable. They are my enemies, I confess it, these Germans. I despise in them every kind of conceptual and valuational uncleanness of cowardice before every honest yes and no. For almost 1,000 years they have messed up and confused everything they touched with their fingers. They have on their conscience everything half-hearted, 3/8-hearted, of which Europe is sick. They also have on their conscience the most unclean kind of Christianity that there is, the most incurable, the most irrefutable, Protestantism. If we do not get rid of Christianity, it will be the fault of the Germans. Chapter 62. With this, I am at the end, and I pronounce my judgment. I condemn Christianity. I raise against the Christian Church the most terrible of all accusations that any accuser ever uttered. It is to me the highest of all conceivable corruptions. It has had the will to the last corruption that is even possible. The Christian Church has left nothing untouched by its corruption. It has turned every value into an unvalue, every truth into a lie, every integrity into a vileness of the soul. Let anyone dare to speak to me of its humanitarian blessings. To abolish any distress ran counter to its deepest advantages. It lived on distress. It created distress to eternalize itself. The worm of sin, for example. With this distress, the church first enriched mankind. The equality of souls before God, this falsehood, this pretext for the rancor of all the base-minded, this explosive of a concept which eventually became revolution, modern idea, and the principle of decline of the whole order of society, is Christian dynamite. Humanitarian blessings of Christianity, to breed out of humanitas a self-contradiction, an art of self-violation, a will to lie at any price, a repugnance, a contempt for all good and honest instincts. Those are some of the blessings of Christianity. Parasitism is the only practice of the church, with its ideal of anemia, of holiness, draining all blood, all love, all hope for life. The beyond as the will to negate every reality. The cross as the mark of recognition for the most subterranean conspiracy that ever existed against health, beauty, whatever has turned out well, courage, spirit, graciousness of the soul against life itself. This eternal indictment of Christianity I will write on all walls wherever there are walls. I have letters to make even the blind see. I call Christianity the one great curse, the one great innermost corruption, the one great instinct of revenge, for which no means is poisonous, stealthy, subterranean, small enough. I call it the one immortal blemish of mankind. And time is reckoned from the dies nefastus with which this calamity began, after the first day of Christianity. Why not rather after its last day, after today? Revaluation of all value.